snow muttered against the black stones like restless birds, scraping across the ancient ramparts of Castle Black in thin-bladed gusts. The sky above the wall was a yellow-gray bruise, the last color of daylight bleeding out behind a curtain of storm clouds that refused to break. In the courtyard below, torches shivered in their iron sconces, their flames almost swallowed by the cold wind. Men shuffled past each other with lowered shoulders, muttering about rations, about wildlings, about the madness of following one dead leader after another. No one spoke her name as she glided through them, only a nervous dip of the chin, averted eyes, the sign of strangers in awe or quiet dread. Melisandre felt none of their chill. Her breath did not fog the air, and the red silk of her robes flowed as though carried by lighter, warmer winds than the ones that clawed at the night's watch. She moved toward the abandoned practice yard, toward the small pyre she had ordered built from frost-brittle driftwood, hauled up from Eastwatch. The flames were lean and half-starved, but they were flames, and for a moment flame was all she needed, warmth against the oncoming void, and a window into things men lacked the courage to see. The snow underfoot carried the hush of a graveyard. That suited her. The night was a grave, and graves were doors. Open one properly, and what lay on the other side might yet be coaxed into the world of the living again. She had seen it before, briefly, imperfectly, yet undeniably. In a village half forgotten by kings far to the south, when the flames had let her borrow a man slain 3 days prior. Thoros of Myr had called it a miracle, whispered that her fire was stronger than his own. But miracles were only words men used when they lacked the lore to name a thing. She knew the names: blood, sacrifice, kings. She reached the pyre, knelt in the crusted snow, and set her palms before the flickering tongues of light. There was so little dry wood that the flames already fought to stay alive, and a fresh gust might swallow them completely. Melisandre whispered Valyrian words of coaxing, old words sharper than a sword's edge, words that once bound dragons to mortal will. The flames steadied. They rose higher, blue at the heart, orange at the tips, and within their glassy motion, she saw visions coil like serpents beneath translucent water. She saw a crown of bronze and iron sinking beneath a red tide. She saw a wolf's head sewn upon a human body, its empty eyes gleaming with unnatural hunger. She saw a hand clad in mail reaching through snowmelt, clutching war banners soaked in pitch. And behind it all, her lord's face, bright as the sun, stern with disapproval. Or was it a warning? The vision blurred, shifting, coming apart into fragments that refused to coalesce. She felt the echo of a familiar heartbeat, but it was not Jon Snow's. Her eyelids fluttered. The flames hissed as if speaking her name. And then she saw him. Gray eyes opened on a slab of marble, wide and milky with death. A silver direwolf licked around his shoulders, a wet phantom tongue of winter wind. The banners behind him were the direwolf of House Stark and the crowned stag of Baratheon intertwined. King in the north, Robb Stark, the young wolf, the one cut down before his hour. When she drew a breath, frost cracked upon her lashes. The flames guttered, though they did not perish. Davos Seaworth stood behind her, a dark silhouette. The former smuggler spoke low, respectful, yet firm. "You saw something, lady." She rose slowly, sweeping snow from her knees. No one else had the right to her visions, not yet. "A possibility," she answered. "A path I had not considered." Davos' voice was barely more than a rasp. The man had seen Jon Snow's corpse that dawn, had smelled the blood still blooming in dirty slush. Another king, Jon was not the only one, she finished, nor the first to die wrongly. The Lord of Light does not bind victory to one soul alone. "Then am I." Davos' brow furrowed. "Robb Stark's been dead more than a year, m'lady. His bones are... Seven save us, I've no idea where they are now. They were sent north after the Freys displayed their abomination. Lady Catelyn's brother demanded it. From River Run the Silent Sisters bore the coffins up the King's Road, intending to enter them in Winterfell's crypts. The North remembers. Even in ruin, It keeps its dead close." She spoke as though reciting a ledger. The Frey betrayal still echoed. Poison in old wounds no sword could cauterize. Davos looked unconvinced. If they reached Winterfell at all, Bolton's sigil flies there now. It will not fly forever. Her eyes glowed ember bright. She turned back to the flames and whispered a phrase that banked them down to coals. Then she pulled her cloak tight, not against the cold. She seldom felt it, but against the doubt she sensed clinging to every man here. When she began walking, Davos fell in at her side. "You wish to retrieve the young wolf," he said at length. "I wish to find where the gods have placed him. And then I wish to ask a question of the flames, one I failed to ask in time for Jon Snow. That name. And if the answer's no, then we have lost nothing but time. But if it is yes..." She let the thought hang. Davos' silence carried the weight of kingdoms. They crossed the yard, climbed the stair to Maester Aemon's old chambers, now hers by default, where a brazier smoldered with sweet cedar and cinnamon bark, with hints of something darker beneath. She took parchment from a chest, unrolled a crude map of the neck, and traced a scarlet nail from Moat Cailin to Winterfell. "The sisters were last seen at the Cranogman's Causeway," she murmured. "Rumor says they passed beneath the eyes of Howland Reed unhindered. If the Boltons captured them, word would have reached the twins to celebrate another cruelty. No, the coffins lie somewhere in the bogs, safe among the reeds." 300 leagues through winter swamps," Davos muttered. "Mounted men might make it in a moon, and that's assuming the marsh doesn't swallow them." Melisandre's laugh was a soft chime. "I will not ride with men. A small escort, yes. A guide, perhaps. But I ride with something stronger than spears." What? Davos' remaining fingers curled on his leather belt. "And who will keep Castle Black while we gallivant? Wildlings still camp by the thousands. Stannis' host dwindles daily. The wall is cracked, and the night is long. You fear the dead may walk." Her smile deepened. "I intend that they do." He had no answer. In the silence, the brazier snapped, releasing a spray of sparks like fleeing insects. Shadows climbed the walls, twisting into antlers, wings, wolves. Melisandre watched their dance and felt a calm settle over her. Doubt was a cloak men wrapped around their shoulders when they lacked a fire within. She had no use for such cloaks. And if Robb Stark's spirit had not yet fled beyond the reach of her lord's grasp, then the North might still gain its king, and the war, its rightful victor. Word of their departure spread not by horn nor proclamation, but by the subtle shift in rumor among black cloaks huddled at mess tables. The Lady in Red rode south with the Onion Knight, some said. Others claimed she sought to burn Jon Snow's body for witch fire, and that Davos had drawn steel to stop her. Neither tale was true, though each contained a flavor of what had passed. Jon's corpse lay in cold storage below the kitchens, guarded as if it might leap to its feet and resume command. Melisandre spared it one lingering glance before she left, sorrow and calculation mingling behind her ruby eyes. She had failed him, for now. Yet loss sometimes cleared the board for truer victories. They slipped through the postern-gate at dawn 2 days later, Melisandre astride a placid chestnut, Davos on a shaggy Garin more at home in snow than mud. The winterscape unfurled before them, hushed and merciless. A white wilderness threaded by a single ribbon of frozen road. 2 mounted spearmen rode behind. Volunteers from the Southron half of Stannis' remnants. Men eager for any mission that did not involve starving at Castle Black. They wore crimson sashes over patchwork mail, a makeshift livery Davos pretended not to see. The first leg toward Molestown passed in brittle quiet. Davos pulled his hood low against the sleet that stung the eyes, yet Melisandre kept her gaze forward, unblinking. It was as though she saw something just beyond the horizon, some beckoning lantern no mortal eyes could find. By dusk, they reached the burned ruin of Molestown. Smoke scars still streaked the broken timbers where Stannis foragers had torched wildling shelters the previous year. They sheltered in a cellar half collapsed into earth, sharing hard bread and watered wine. Davos spoke around a mouthful, voice low so the guards could not overhear. "I'll say it plain, lady. I've seen men risen by Beric Dondarrion. Just once, but they came back wrong. Like candles left too long in the sun. Half melted. Then Melisandre sipped the wine, unconcerned. The cellar's gloom only heightened the dull glow emanating from her skin, as though an ember pulsed beneath her breastbone. Resurrection is not a draught from some drunken septon's cask. It is a shaping of shadow. The first smith to forge Valyrian steel ruined 10 blades before he taught the metal obedience. Each time, the folds grew truer. The Lord's fire learns too. Davos swallowed his doubt with the last of the bread. And if the fire decides to keep a part of him, same as it kept a part of Lord Beric, then we pay the due, she said. Every victory costs, Onion Knight. My task is to weigh the cost against the night that comes. Davos' thoughts drifted to Shireen, to the pyre on Dragonstone that had driven him across half the world to save a princess from being fuel for prophecy. He closed his eyes. I have weighed costs, he said, and found most too dear. Melisandre regarded him, unreadable. Her hand touched her ruby, and for a heartbeat Davos wondered whether she saw his doubts as clearly as she saw flames. Yet when she spoke, her tone gentled. You loved a king who failed his destiny, she said, and now you guard the memory of a night boy who might yet fulfill it. I do not ask that you love my choices, only that you follow long enough to see whether the flames speak true. Davos could find no fault in that. He rolled his cloak around himself and slept uneasily, dreaming of a direwolf's head howling on a banquet table, while fires raged behind it, casting everything in red. 3 days brought them to Queenscrown, where the old wooden tower leaned exhausted over a moat of black ice. No fires burned in the handful of huts nearby. The cottages had been abandoned since the wildlings swept through. Melisandre paused only long enough to kneel at the tower's base, her palm pressed to the ancient timber. The air smelled of damp ash and rotting reeds. She closed her eyes. Voices whispered echoed through the grain of the wood. A king's bastard crossing swords, a girl archer's arrow whistling, crows crying in the dark. When she rose, Davos noted the strange peace in her posture. She remounted. The marsh begins ahead, she said. From here, we trust the spirits of the neck to guide us. The spirits of a swamp, Davos muttered. Lovely companions. Yet he followed. Because men who refused paths sometimes found paths came for them. The land sagged into a labyrinth of standing water where dead trees reached skyward like pleading arms. Frost limbed every branch, and the smallest splash of horse hooves cracked pale sheets that froze in minutes. The 2 spearmen cursed often, unaccustomed to marsh travel. Davos led, cutting reeds and testing pools with a spear shaft. Melisandre drifted behind, her horse seeming to find firmer ground than any of theirs, as though soil rose to meet her steps. On the 7th day, a horn sounded across the bog. 3 short blasts, distant but near enough to freeze every torchlit breath. Davos stiffened. Wildlings? No. Melisandre drew a small pouch from her belt and scattered red powder onto the stagnant water. It hissed, releasing steam that carried the scent of myrrh. A moment later, figures rose from the cattails. 6 lean men in boiled leather, green cloaks mottled with moss, their faces painted brown and gray. "Granagman Dutch tea. Howland Reed's folk," Davos whispered. The lead bog rider approached, spear leveled. His eyes flicked over Davos, over the nervous spearmen, and settled on Melisandre's crimson robes. "Fire witch," he said in a voice like rustling leaves. "The neck is no friend to southern sorcery." Melisandre's smile was thin. "Nor to the knives that slew your king beyond guessed right." At that, the Cranagman's spear point lowered a finger's breadth. The breeze tugged strands of pale swamp grass through his hair like thin crowns. "Say your purpose." "I seek the coffin of Robb Stark." "Why?" "To return what was taken." The spear dipped another inch. Murmurs shifted among the riders. Davos counted half-drawn bows, blades poised. The tension might snap like brittle pine. He cleared his throat. "Sir Davos Seaworth, formerly of King Stannis' council, do I. We come peaceably. If Lord Reed still honors the memory of Eddard Stark, grant us speech. That's all we ask." Doha. Names held power in the neck. The Cranagman hesitated, then signaled. Bows eased. The riders parted to reveal a low-curved skiff drawn through reeds by 2 oarsmen. Lord Reed awaits at Greywater Watch, the lead rider said. Follow, but mind the water. It remembers. It took half a day to navigate hidden channels that twisted like gutworms. Greywater Watch rose by dusk. An unsteady-looking fortress of timber and stone perched on an island that shifted beneath reed roots, rumored to drift slowly around the swamp. Fires glimmered in shuttered slits, and windchimes of bone rattled above the gate. Howland Reed met them in a torchlit hall strung with skins of fish and gar draped over beams. He wore reeds at his shoulders, and a bronze gorget etched with runes older than the first men. His eyes, green as pond water, regarded Melisandre with careful mistrust. You would disturb the young king's rest? He asked. I would end his rest, she replied. The direwolf still has battles to win. Reed's gaze shifted to Davos. Stannis' hand once, he said, and now hers. I follow the realm's need, Davos said. If dead men walk in the snow beyond the wall, we'll need every sword, dead or alive. Reed's jaw hardened. The Boltons feed crows upon my king's homeland. I have sent letters, blades, vows, all swallowed by the winter. If breath can return to Robb Stark, I would bear any cost. Yet I must be certain what soul would come back, a faithful wolf or a shadow bound to fire. Didim Solin. Melisandre approached the hall's central hearth. Flames leapt toward her as if greeting kin. Both wolf and fire know obedience when shown purpose, she said. Let me see him. Reed nodded. Two guards pushed open a heavy door at the hall's rear, revealing a shrine room lit only by weirwood tapers. The air smelled of pine pitch and faint rot. Atop a stone bier lay a long ironwood coffin, its lid carved with the direwolf of Stark. Melisandre's hand brushed the wood. The wolf under her palm felt cold as moonlit iron, yet she sensed heat coiled deeper, like a heart still faintly ticking. She closed her eyes. A thumping echoed in her eardrums, slow and distant as thunder beyond hills. Reed's voice was almost a whisper. We buried his mother upriver. The phrase threw her in, sliced ear to navel. I returned her to the water she bled for. But Robb I kept, because the North would want him. A king belongs to his people, Melisandre said. Alive even more than dead. She faced the gathered men. Reed, Davos, the guards. I will need salt, smoke, and a heart of flame. A stag's, if you have one. Reed gestured to a basket of provisions. The bog gives deer sometimes. Their hearts are lean, but strong. Strong will serve. She lifted the coffin lid with Davos' aid. Within lay Robb Stark's body, swaddled in clean wool steeped with pine oil. His head had indeed been reattached, sewn by careful hands. Stitches formed dark X's across his throat. Skin pale as milk glass, lips colorless. Yet the set of his jaw remained kingly, and even in death he seemed to listen. Davos swallowed hard. Mother Mercy bless him. Melisandre drew a small iron dagger with a hilt shaped like a twisting flame. She pricked her palm, letting 3 drops of crimson fall onto Robb's forehead. Salt, she intoned. Tears for what was lost and must be forgiven. She scattered coarse gray grains across his chest. Smoke. Reed's men lowered resinous branches into censers until thick incense coiled above them. A heart of flame, a stag's heart, freshly cut, still steaming, was set upon his breast. The hall's torches sputtered as if a wind passed none could feel. Shadows writhed up the walls, forming antlers, direwolves, faceless shapes dancing in silence. Melisandre pressed her bleeding palm to the heart. She began to chant in the tongue of old Valyria, guttural, sweeping syllables that clawed at the air. The heart caught fire, crimson first, then blazing gold. Where flame met flesh, Robb Stark's skin charred black, then cracked, revealing a glow beneath like coal roused from slumber. Davos' breath hitched. Reed's hand went to the hilt of his frog spear, though whether to defend his king or slay a demon, Davos could not guess. The chanting rose, a crescendo beneath the rafters. Sparks spiraled upward, bursting against the thatch. Melisandre threw back her head. The ruby at her throat flared brighter than forge of fire. A sound like distant wolves baying rolled through the room, though outside only still water surrounded Greywater Watch. The heart collapsed into ash. Flames guttered around the corpse's ribs before snuffing out entirely. Silence fell, smothering. Only the crackle of the hearth persisted, lazy and mundane. Robb Stark lay motionless, the streak of ash across his chest cooling to gray. The ruby dimmed. Davos exhaled. Reed's eyes narrowed in grief, sharpened by anger. One guard muttered a prayer to the old gods. Melisandre's shoulders sagged. For the first time since Davos had met her, she seemed small. She touched Robb's cheek. It was cold as stone. Then she whispered, something too soft to hear, drew her hand back, and turned as though to leave. A choking gasp rent the quiet. Davos spun. Kawi. Robb Stark's fingers curled. His chest rose, a shallow, tremulous breath dragging air over cracked lips. Eyes shot open, silver-gray pupils dilated wide. He tried to speak. Only a ragged cough erupted, flecked with soot. Howland Reed fell to one knee. "My king," he whispered, voice trembling. Davos' heart hammered like a drum. Melisandre watched, unmoving, her eyes pools of reflected firelight. Whatever joy or triumph stirred inside her, she hid it beneath the serene mask of prophecy fulfilled. Robb's gaze roamed the shadowed hall, confusion swimming within. His throat worked soundlessly until words rasped through dried blood. Gray wind, pain, memory, horror flashed across his reborn face. Tears welled, salt, fresh, living, and the room's torches abruptly flared brighter, as though the direwolf spirit answered his name in flame. Melisandre advanced. "Be still, your grace. The night is dark, and you have come a long road back to us." Robb's eyes found hers. A flicker of fear, quickly buried by the steel of a king raised for battle, set his jaw. "The twins," he whispered. "Mother." His breath hitched on the word. Then, slowly, he pushed himself upright against the bier's rim. The stitches at his throat parted and bled anew. Yet he did not fall. Reed stepped forward, tears shining. "Winterfell needs you, Robb. The North still calls." "Eh?" Robb's gaze drifted past them, as though seeing something none of them could. "The North," he echoed. "And something else, cold as the wall. Teeth of blue." He shivered, though fever sweat beaded on his brow. "I dreamed of arms of ice. They reach." Melisandre's breath drew in, sharp. "Then you are blessed with sight, as well as life. The war that awaits is not the one you left behind." Robb's fingers grazed the ash on his chest, feeling the burned sigil of the stag. Fire met frost in his eyes, forging resolve from terror. He set his feet to the stone floor, trembling but unbowed. "Then show me the enemy," he said, voice rough as a whetstone on steel. "And I will teach it the price of waking wolves." Melisandre bowed her head. "So we shall, your grace. But first the flames must finish their work. The wolf must reclaim his pack." Greywater Watch seemed to hold its breath. Out in the marsh, night birds fell silent, and a hush rolled across black water. Somewhere far beyond, snow began to fall over Winterfell, each flake a whisper of the storm to come. The resurrected king stood beneath the bonekaims and the smoldering torches, his shadow stretching long and dark upon the skins of the hall. Cast by fires he could barely feel, yet somehow commanded. The young wolf had come home, and the North, along with every living soul who hoped to see dawn after the longest night, would learn whether death had made him a sharper blade or tempered him into something no forge could name. And in the woman's ruby, flame whirled endlessly, reflecting a destiny rewritten. Pa-K. Dawn seeped into the neck like pale ink, the first color Robb Stark had witnessed since waking from death. It crept across the low marshlands in pearly wisps, revealing frost-slick reeds that bent beneath their own thin weight. He stood on the rampart of Greywater Watch, wrapped in a cloak of marten fur, breathing air that tasted of peat and salt and distant pines. Each inhalation throbbed against the raw stitches at his throat, a reminder of the steel that had once severed his head from hope. Yet pain itself seemed strangely muted, as though life clung to him by new rules written somewhere beyond flesh and bone. Below, the courtyard bustled with crannogmen fitting swamp skiffs for travel. Reed's folk moved without hurry, yet nothing they did wasted motion. Spears trimmed with obsidian heads leaned against bundled rushes. Spiral-etched shields hung from slender branches embedded into the island's shifting soil. Robb watched until his vision blurred. A faint, silver haze ringed at the edge of every shape. As if the world itself stood half inside a dream he was not certain he shared. A soft step approached. Davos Seaworth stopped at his side, rubbing hands against the mist. "Lord, your grace," he corrected, the honorific catching awkwardly on his tongue. "Your pulse looks stronger this morning." Robb considered the smuggler's lined face. Sea-worn, honest, uneasy. "It does," he said, "though I have no way to measure yesterday's." Speech rasped like parchment. Still, he spoke, tasting the words. "I feel lighter and heavier. Lighter, because the pain that carried me to death seems gone. Heavier, because the North waits." "The North remembers," Davos said gently. Then, as though the phrase alone were inadequate, he fumbled inside his cloak and produced a folded square of cloth. "Lord Reed asked that I give this to you." Robb took it. The direwolf of Stark snarled across gray wool bleached nearly white at the edges. The banner smelled faintly of river water and iron. He traced the wolf's outline with a thumb that trembled in half-known muscle memory. Ghost memories flashed. A battlefield before the twins, trumpets, the rumble of horse beneath him. Then the butchery. A dining hall. Music cut short. Gray wind's frantic howl, echoing inside head and chest alike. A tremor shook him, sharp enough that Davos' hand flew to his elbow in silent offer. Robb steadied, forcing the vision back behind his eyes. "Gray wind's spirit lingers," he said. "In dreams he circles me. I do not know whether he guards or judges." Davos exhaled a visible breath. "I sailed with men who lost loved ones at sea. They often claimed the drowned followed the living until debts were settled. Some found comfort in it, some despair. And you?" "I found duty," Davos answered. "Debts to repay in deeds rather than mourning." Robb folded the banner against his heartbeat. "Then we repay," he said. "But first we must gather more than Crannog spears." "Lady Melisandre prepares to ride at midday," Davos said. "She claims her fire can hide us from watchful eyes, or blind us to daggers at our backs," Robb muttered. Yet he felt strangely bound to her now, by threads invisible as a spider's silk. Threads that hummed faint heat when he stood too near. "If she guided me from death, she will guide me to Winterfell. But I will choose my own path between." Dash! He glanced south, where the faint line of the King's Road vanished beneath morning haze. Bolton banners flew somewhere down that bleak ribbon, flayed men twisting upon pale pink cloth. Anger coiled like a striking viper inside his lungs, yet alongside it lived something colder. Knowledge of the far deadlier war whispered in his dreams, the silent march of white shadows beneath moonless skies. "We march north," he said. Greywater Watch slid from view behind low fog. Reed's island fortress truly drifted, pushed by hidden currents none could map. Each hour its silhouette shrank, until only reed-plumed shallows marked where it had been. The party moved by narrow skiffs lashed together. Robb, Davos, Melisandre, Howland Reed, and 24 Crannog spearmen. The water lay glassy under still air, reflecting bruised clouds. Melisandre rode at the prow of the lead boat, crimson robe spilling over damp planks. Her ruby glimmered even without sun. Occasionally she dipped a hand into the water, letting ripples catch faint ember light from her palm. At such moments Robb felt warmth along his scars, as if unseen threads tightened, drawing him forward. Reed guided the skiffs through channels only he knew. A flick of his spear to the left, a whispered, bear east, and the oarsman obeyed. Reed's daughter Mira kept pace along the banks, leaping firm tussocks with the ease of an otter, scouting for crossbowmen or hidden snares. Jojen Reed remained behind at the watch. He had been seized by one of his trembling green sight trances when they departed, and his sister deemed it omen enough to keep him safe. The second night they made camp upon a hummock island, ringed by ghost willows. A thin drizzle pattered the leather awnings. Robb sat near a smokeless fire of peat blocks cut from the marsh. Melisandre knelt opposite, palms hovering over embers. The dim glow painted her cheeks with flickering highlights, but her shadow on the ground behind her stayed perfectly still, as though cast by some other light entirely. At length Robb spoke. "Why did your God spare me?" She did not lift her eyes. "Spare is the wrong word. Our Lord does not spare. He reclaims and reforges. Your life ended in treachery, but your duty had scarcely begun." "And?" "My duty was to unite the North. Your duty is to defend all men where winter ends them alike." Robb exhaled. The others. The word felt absurd in his mouth, a child's fable of ice demons, spoken by a man who'd ridden against Lannisters and Freys. Yet the ache in his bones when dusk deepened told him the fable walked already. "You saw them." "I see fires in the dark," she said. "Your eyes, newly washed in death, see the dark behind the fires. Together, we may glimpse truth." She reached across the coals, fingertips brushing his knuckles. At the touch, heat surged, a living wave cresting through veins into heart. Visions flickered behind his eyelids. Towering shapes of brittle crystal, legions silent as falling snow, eyes burning sapphire that froze air itself. Beneath them, gray shapes darted, wolves, men, children, each snuffed to ash that swirled upward into a sky where no sun shone. He jerked away, the images retreating like startled crows. Sweat cooled on his brow, though night air was frigid. He studied her with muted dread and dawning respect. "The wall cannot hold. It is a leak in a dam long cracked," she answered. "Jon Snow might have mended or broken it, the flames would not say. But your path stands here now. When the wall falls, the North must greet winter with teeth bared." "How do we bear teeth without wolves?" Robb murmured. "My bannermen are scattered, my house in ruin, Winterfell burned and rebuilt by traitors." Melisandre's stare did not soften, yet her tone lost its harsh edge. "Flame calls to flame, even embers beneath snow. Blow gently, and they may reignite." By the 8th day, they cleared the worst of the bogs, skiffs grounding at Moat Caelin's southern causeway under moonlight. The ruined towers loomed, 3 blackened hulks shaped from black basalt that drank starlight whole. No torches lit their arches. Howland Reed halted the column with a raised hand. Silence pressed around them. Robb stepped ashore, boots sinking into cold mud. He felt the moat walls watching, as if ghosts of first men still stood sentinel. "The Ironborn abandoned this place," he whispered. "Bolton men garrison it lightly now," Reed replied. "But none hold the landward pass after nightfall. They fear ghosts of their own making." A low owl hoot signaled from the northern arch. Mira emerged with 2 gray-cloaked sentries, Manderly scouts. She led them to Robb, knelt, and rose with a grin half wild. "White Harbor remembers your grace. Lord Wyman sends fish and daggers." The older scout unfastened a leather tube. He unfurled a parchment bearing the merman of Manderly wreathed in seaweed, stamped in green wax. "To his grace, King Robb Stark," he read, voice quavering as though sharing a secret with gods. "Word of your rebirth reached White Harbor upon raven's wings quicker than common rumor. If this letter finds you living, my halls stand open. If it finds you dead, I shall mourn again and hide this folly. The North hungers for a head that still thinks of winter's teeth. Come swift, come secret. The merman shall raise fleets or graves as you command." Robb folded the letter, a weight heavier than vellum. "Bolton spies circle White Harbor daily. Lord Wyman risks his line for mine. Non? Bolton spies daily where they trespass," Mira said, flashing a frog spear grin sharper than its steel tip. Robb allowed himself a small smile. "Then we ride tide and march to White Harbor." He turned to Davos. You wore the stag of Baratheon. You know ships better than any in the north. Will Lord Wyman's fleets carry an army up the White Knife come winter? With the right tides and a bit of luck, aye, Davos said. But an army needs banners, coin, provisions. Banners we gather, Robb answered, glancing at Melisandre's ruby. Coin. The Lannisters bled us dry. Yet the faith of men is coin of its own. He turned to read. Spread word through the fen, the king in the north rides. Tell the houses still loyal to Ned Stark to light the watchfires on their hall roofs. Tell them the song they remember is not yet ended. Reed's green eyes glowed in torchlight. They will come on silent feet. Melisandre stepped past him to the basalt wall. She pressed both palms to the stone. Flickering threads of red spread like veins across the dark surface. Old magic sleeps in these towers, she murmured. A cage to hold dragons once, perhaps. We depart before dawn. Let the stone dream undisturbed. That night, Robb lay beneath a half-collapsed parapet smelling of seaweed and ravencroak. Sleep stalked him. When it came, it unfolded as twin dreams layered one atop the other. Above, he walked Winterfell's broken halls, each footstep echoing like hammer to anvil. Below, a dark mirror followed. Footsteps upon ice as thick as a castle wall. Every echo cracked the silence of a frozen sea. In both worlds he was alone until gray wind patted from shadow, muzzle crusted with snow where once blood had clotted. The direwolf gazed at him with eyes like molten silver. Robb reached to bury fingers in its fur. His hand passed through smoke and fire instead, and the wolf's form rippled, becoming flame that licked skyward until a man emerged. Jon Snow, eyes vacant, heart aflame. Jon raised his sword, Lightbringer, but the blade shone ice blue, frost steaming from its edge. When the sword came down, both dreams shattered. Robb jolted upright amid silent towers, breath clouding. Melisandre sat cross-legged nearby, watching with the patience of a statue. Dreams test the iron, she said. Few emerge unbroken. He rubbed his eyes. Jon Snow. I saw him burn ice. All kings burn something, she said. But dreams need not be doom. They warn. They do not command. Robb searched her gaze. Can you see if Jon still lies dead? Flames whisper names, not certainties, she answered. Yet I sense threads cut short. The crows he served build walls from doubt, not stone. Robb settled back, mind racing. If Jon remained dead, the wall had lost its Lord Commander, and the watch would splinter without glue. He would need those crows aligned before winter's flood. A shiver passed. The journey to White Harbor proved mercifully swift. 2 days by skiff through the fever water, then 3 on shaggy northern garrons along snow-rimmed tracks, where pine boughs bowed beneath hard frost. The group grew as they rode. Dusty riders bearing Karstark sunbursts, ragged levies from House Hornwood, a half-dozen Umber scouts who laughed loud enough to scare game into traps. Each new banner raised sighs Robb felt more than heard. A collective exhale of a north that had feared itself orphaned. Yet numbers alone could not dull the ache where life restitched itself within him. His vision would blur at odd moments, sounds stretched thin as though he heard them through boards. Davos noticed, but said little. Melisandre noticed and said less, though one night by firelight, she caught his wrist and pressed thumb to the faint pulse beneath scarred skin, as if confirming her craft still held. They reached the south gate of White Harbor under thick clouds and gull cries. Lord Wyman Manderley, immense in ermine-edged robes, awaited in the courtyard with his sworn brother Sir Marlon Manderley, flanked by knights bearing silver trident banners. "My king," Wyman boomed, knees protesting as he knelt. The Mander and the Milkwater rejoiced. Tears glittered in his small eyes as he rose, enveloping Robb's hand in warm sausage-thick fingers. Winter comes with teeth, but the wolf returns with jaw enough to break them. Robb clasped the fat lord's grip. Your faith keeps the north alive, my lord. Tonight we plan, but first, bread and salt. I have seen what comes of broken guest right. The echo of music and massacre flickered again behind his eyes. A feast of remembrance, Wyman vowed. In a council of war after. Within the airy great hall of the new castle, candles glistened on marble floors. Tables sagged under platters of smoked eel, lemon trout, crusty oats, and barrels of White Harbor ale tapped until foam flooded trenches. The lords gathered. Rickard Karstark's cousins, Lady Alis Hornwood wrapped in sable, the Great June's bastard nephew Red Rolf Umber, and lesser bannermen from Bear Island to Widow's Watch. They ate cautiously at first, watching Robb as though he still lay on a bier. When he rose to address them, the hush fell like cathedral bells. He spoke of betrayal, of Freys and Boltons, of a North born again from ashes. He spoke of winter, of enemies beyond walls of ice, and of the need for unity forged not by fear, but by the memory of Ned Stark's honor. He did not weep, though memory threatened. Instead, he offered the cup of his own death and resurrection as proof that destinies could be redeemed. The hall erupted in roars, some of courage, some of disbelief, but none of indifference. Later, in Wyman's Solar overlooking dark waters, Robb convened a smaller circle. Davos, Melisandre, Howland Reed, Master Theomore, and Wyman himself. Maps sprawled across oak. Red wax markers noted Bolton patrols, Frey garrisons, Karstark sympathies, and wildling raiding parties beyond the wall. Roose Bolton holds Winterfell with fewer than 1,000 men, Theomore reported, squinting through candlelight. But his bastard at the Dreadfort commands near twice that, hardened killers. Winterfell's walls crumbled after the Ironborn sacked her. Wyman rumbled. Bolton rebuilt thick stone but neglected the godswood. The heart tree whispers of new tunnels still open to root caverns. Reed nodded. The children of the forest-carved passages none living southerners know. I know some. And the bastard? Robb asked. Ramsay hunts girls nightly, Lady Alice answered from the doorway, having slipped in like a shade. He rides the wolfswood with mudhounds. One might lure him out. Robb's jaw tightened. The thought of baiting living souls sickened him. But the bastard flayed living souls nightly. If he roams, he said, we hunt. But first Roose must fall. We capture Winterfell, rally bannermen to one beacon. Melisandre traced a slim finger across the map from Eastwatch to Winterfell. When the wall cracks, the storm will flood southwards. Winterfell's hot springs may prove critical, warmth to slow the ice. Robb swallowed questions. To claim Winterfell for heat, rather than history, felt strange, yet survival demanded pragmatism. We march, he said, but not alone. Lord Wyman, raise fleet and levy. Reed, guide our vanguard through hidden paths to the holdfast. Davos, you will sail White Knife to meet Karstark cattle trains, secure their loyalty or sink their grain should they side with Bolton. May Norton terror. Davos inclined his head. My hand on it. Melisandre, Robb continued, bracing for the heat behind her answer. I need more than fire. Can your god send ravens? He can send nightmares, she replied. Some speak louder than parchment, but ravens I shall find. Their eyes see distant halls, and what they see I can watch in flame. Robb met her stare. Watch for Jon Snow. If he breathes again, we are two swords where once was one. Andino. Her lips curved faintly. I watch. Preparations filled a fortnight. Smithies rang day and night, forging spearheads of castle steel dipped in crude silver. Reed's insistence, for he believed silver might wound whatever horrors walked behind winter. Sept and Shelador, once of the Night's Watch, but retired to White Harbor's Sept. Blessed bundles of weirwood shavings to burn as incense against dark spirits. From Skagos came news that House Magnar stirred, yet uncertain which wolf to follow. From Deepwood Motte, Lady Sybil Glover answered Reed's ravens, with promises of 300 archers once the wolf sign burned above Winterfell. Robb wore his armor only at night, walking ramparts until dawn. Sleep brought dreams of branches laden with frost flowers that blossomed into daggers of translucent ice. When he cut them free, they hardened into sigils of every house that betrayed him before melting into blood. In waking hours he practiced swordwork with Red Rolf, muscles reacquainting with steel. At times he felt stronger than before death, at others weaker, fingers tingling as though nerves misfired. One morning, as gulls spun over the harbor, word arrived from Mole's town. A small band of wildlings under Tormund Giantsbane sought trade for salt beef and axes. Their escort carried a letter sealed in pitch. Jon Snow's handwriting, unsteady, reading simply, "Alive. Need aid. Others stir. Send north any who will stand." Relief and sorrow mixed in Robb's chest like rain and ash. Jon lived. Yet the wall faltered. He strode to Melisandre's chamber where heat rolled from braziers. "You saw," he said. She nodded. "His life was returned without me. Another hand works the forge. The same god? Or a different name for the same flame?" She tilted her head. "Shall we ride to him, abandon Winterfell, split our strength?" Robb thought of Bolton banners, of flayed victims, of the heart tree's silent cry. "If we leave Winterfell in Bolton hands and snowfalls, we lose the only hearth large enough for the North to rally. Jon guards the wall. I must guard the heart." "It is so." She rose, ruby, pulsing. Then the dance begins. They marched at new moon. Crannog outrunners slithered through barrow downs. Umber spears rode shaggy horses. Manderley knights bore blazoned lanterns shuttered with whalebone. Under the hooded way, secret trail of root and limestone, they crossed White Knife and stormed east of the King's Road, avoiding Bolton scouts by hugging weirwood groves, where warding runes carved by children, a forest glowed faintly when touched by Melisandre's hand. On the sixth night, snow began in earnest. Huge flakes drifting under pale aurorae rippling in the high sky, glimmering green and violet like drowned torches. The wind did not howl, it sighed, almost melodic. Men muttered of ghosts. Mira smelled the air and frowned. "This snow is wrong," she whispered. She scooped a handful. The flakes melted not into water but into nothing, vanishing like breath on glass. Robb's mount shied. Far off, a horn, a single low note, echoed through forest. No banner of Bolton used horns at night. Robb's gloved fingers tightened on his reins. The column halted. Torches lifted, illuminating swirling phantom snow. Then shapes emerged between the trunks. Wolves, a dozen, pelts black, gray, white. Their eyes shone gold in torchlight. They did not snarl. They watched. From the pack's center strode a figure cloaked in tattered furs. A woman's figure, tall, hair pale as early dawn. She carried a spear of weirwood tipped with dragonglass. "Robb Stark," she called, voice echo soft. The forest answers. Reed elbowed Robb gently. "Listen, your grace. This is no mortal host." Robb dismounted. Snow without warmth touched his shoulders yet left no wetness. "Who speaks?" "Leaf," said the woman. Melisandre stepped beside him, face unreadable. "Child of the forest," she murmured. Leaf gazed at Melisandre's ruby. "A flame that burns too bright consumes the wood. But wolves and trees grew together before your god crawled from the ashes of old Valeria." Robb raised a hand. "We seek Winterfell." "We know," Leaf said. "The heart tree weeps in chains. Free it or ice will freeze its tears until they shatter." She gestured. The pack of wolves turned as one, padding northward. "Follow." Towards start. Without waiting, she slipped into dark. The wolves melted between trunks. Reed whispered, "We would be fools to refuse." Robb nodded. Torches dimmed as men hurried after silent pause. The forest thickened, branches arching overhead into a vault of black glass, where the aurora painted shifting glyphs. Robb felt an undercurrent, like the low hum within a forged blade freshly quenched, thrumming through roots into bone. After a league, they entered a clearing, ringed by old stones carved with swirling lines. At its center, a cavern mouth yawned, exhaling warm mist smelling of sap and earth. Leaf reappeared beside one stone. "Here," she said, touching the lintel. "Below lies a secret track to Winterfell's crypts. Your forebears walked it when the world was young. The way remains, though men forgot." She looked to Melisandre. "Flame-haired one, walk softly. Fire is hungry. Melisandre inclined her head, a gesture half courteous, half challenge. I keep my flame on a tight leash. Robb moved toward Leaf. Why help us? Because winter hungers too, she answered. And if men eat each other, the night will feast. He breathed a vow. We will free the heart tree, and we will stand before the night. Leaf stepped back into shadows. Hum within the stones faded, leaving only windless quiet. Robb turned to his captains. We break the army here, he said. Small company through the tunnel. Davos leads the rest to encircle the castle once we breach. An arrow at the eye, not the throat, Davos agreed. A little blood blinds faster than a lot spilled wide. Robb clasped arms with him. Keep the men ready. Melisandre lowered her hood, revealing hair like living embers. Shall I walk the dark with you, or light the night outside? You walk, Robb said softly. Your flame may turn the shadows back. He addressed the others. Reed, Mira, Lady Alice, a pair of Umber berserkers, and Maester Theomore, who insisted the heart tree would need a healer's care. 9 go in, he declared. 9 wolves, silent as snow. He approached the cavern mouth. Warm air brushed his cheeks, scented of centuries. For a moment he felt the same suspension he had known between death and waking, a verge he might cross and never return. Then he stepped forward. Sword drawn, banner of direwolf folded under arm, and the dark swallowed him. The tunnel sloped gently, enough for horses in elder days. Roots breached stone in curling tendrils that glowed faint when Melisandre passed. The sound of water dripped somewhere deeper. Robb's heart pounded slow and steady, yet every few beats a second rhythm hitched, like a hammer striking inside his ribs. The others followed close, each breath echoing, mingling with old smells of lichen and worm mold. After 100 yards they reached a fork. Reed knelt, tested the ground, and led them right into narrower ways. Occasionally they passed the remnants of ancient torches, rings of iron fused into the stone, a crust of charcoal still clinging. Robb touched one, imagining kings of winter 30 centuries gone striding this path to seek counsel of the weirwood roots. Feel that, Mira whispered. A hush trembled through the ground. It was not tremor, but sound-traveling bones. Distant footsteps above, muffled, and a scream cut short. Ramsay's hounds. Robb's fingers tightened on sword hilt. They climbed a final stair carved with sigils of wolves, chasing stags. A slab of dressed granite sealed the passage, a stone door cunningly counterweighted. Reed found the laver disguised as root. Through his weight, stone slid revealing damp night air, scented with sulfur and pine needles. They emerged into Winterfell's godswood, beneath heavy branches of the great weirwood. The heart tree towered, leaves pale as fresh snow, but its bark was scarred. Runes hacked with axe, chunks gouged to expose pink flesh. Around its trunk, thick chains of black iron looped, each link forged like flayed men screaming. At the tree's base, a freshly slaughtered woman hung upside down, blood soaking into roots. A sigil of stag carved on her chest. A cold rage filled Robb. The bastard's doing. A mockery of his mother's husband's bloodline. Mira gagged. Lady Alice drew a knife to cut the corpse free. Melisandre stepped forward first. She pressed her palm to the dead woman's forehead. She bled less than an hour. Ramsay's hunting. Her eyes narrowed at the chains. Cold iron about heart tree. No wonder the godswood feels deaf. She closed her eyes. Fire may soften metal, but flame near weirwood risks turning sap to ash. Robb sheathed his sword. Then we break chains the old way. He lifted a maul resting among roots, old practice tool from the yard. With reed and umber muscle, he swung. Iron rang, sparks flew. The weirwood's carved face watched with red sap tears where Bolton axes had scored. Blow by blow links shattered, clanging like funeral bells in the silent night. Above, laughter echoed faint. Ramsay's distinct howl. A horn blast answered, and torches flared along battlements. The castle woke. Robb crushed the final link. Chains fell with a hiss. The weirwood seemed to exhale. Leaves stirred though no breeze touched them. The carved face's eyes glistened, bleeding sap bright as arterial red. The glow of Melisandre's ruby intensified until the heart tree shone in reflected scarlet. She murmured words of binding. Sap drops ignited into tiny flames and extinguished, leaving streaks of smoke curling skywards. A deep boom pulsed underground, like a drum awakening. Robb turned. Winterfell breathes. Now the wolf howls. A horn sounded beyond walls, long and low. Davos Dottendein. Outside, war cries erupted. Stark. Winterfell. The North. Boltons scrambled from barracks, but gates buckled under Manderley rams. Umber berserkers stormed posterns. Karstark defectors slit Bolton throats from within, hoisting wolf banners. Ramsay's hounds bayed nearer. Mira bared her frog spear. Reed melted into tree line. Robb strode from Godswood, sword raised toward yard. Snow drifted, real snow this time, cold and wet, and settled on his pauldrons like fresh wool. The fight in the yard was chaos. Bolton soldiers half-armed, stabbing at shadows. Reed's silent arrows dropping men where they stood. Melisandre walking among corpses, her ruby blazing, touching fallen Stark banners that burst alight in eerie luminescence, guiding allies. The Umber twins carved a path to the keep door. Lady Alice engaged sergeants tall as any knight, her short sword flicking blood like raindrops. Robb found Ramsay on the steps of the Great Hall, leather armor dyed pink, a girl's scalp braided at his belt. He grinned as if greeting a jester. Look who crawled from his grave. Did your wolf fetch your head back, dog? Robb advanced. This hall belongs to the Starks. Does your corpse remember how it lost last time? Ramsay drew twin daggers of flensing steel. I'll sew your eyes to the heart tree. Their clash rang bright, a dance of blade and dagger. Ramsay moved quick as hatred, slashing for weak points, but Robb's strokes carried weight of vengeance and a strange steadiness born of second life. When Ramsay feinted low, Robb pivoted and smashed pommel into his jaw. Bone cracked. Ramsay spat blood, laughter turning to manic snarl. He lunged. Robb parried, catching dagger between crossguard prongs, twisting until metal snapped. Ramsay reeled, drawing breath to call hounds, but Reed's arrow flew, pinning his tunic to doorframe. Another arrow, then Mira's spear grazed his ribs. Ramsay yowled, tearing free only to find Robb's sword at his throat. Yet Robb paused. Killing seemed too easy, too quiet for horrors wrought. The North judges, he said, raising voice so soldiers on both sides froze. Ramsay Snow, called Bolton my treacherous quill of a false king, stand for sentence. Horns sounded across the yard. Stark horns, Manderley horns, Glover, Hornwood, and Umber horns, blending into a single throbbing roar. Ramsay's eyes darted, seeking route of escape. None existed. Robb turned to Melisandre. She approached, eyes aglow. He burns dirty, she said softly, but fire cleans all. She extended a hand, flame danced across her fingertips. Robb looked to Reed. Reed nodded once. Mira's grip slackened on spear, but she did not speak. Davos stepped from the throng, expression grave yet resigned. Robb met Ramsay's panic with the silence his father once leveled at deserters. In the name of old gods and new, he pronounced, I sentence you to die. He swung. The blade took Ramsay at the neck, one stroke. Blood sprayed across snow. Ramsay's body crumpled, his head rolled, eyes still widening in disbelief until Melisandre touched it. Flame burst, searing flesh to cinder. The smell stung nostrils, but no one turned away. A hush rippled outward. Then a shout rose. The king in the north. Banners lifted, direwolf snapping in night wind. Robb raised sword dripping crimson. Atop the battlements, Manderley men threw open gatehouses. The castle thundered alive with cheers. But Robb felt none of triumph's ease. Instead he felt the weirwood whispering behind him, a pulse through ground into marrow, repeating a single beat. Stirring, stirring, stirring. And with each surge, cold beyond cold brushed his spine. Melisandre's voice reached his ear. Fire conquers, but winter endures. Hold fast, your grace. The long night bends but is not broken. Snowflakes swirled anew, thicker now, reflecting firelight in glittering arcs. Robb Stark, reborn and crowned in fresh blood, gazed over the walls of his ancestral home, ruined, reclaimed, alive, and saw beyond its towers a vast horizon of black-white nothing, waiting to swallow joy as it had swallowed everything before. He lifted his sword to the sky. Sparks leapt from steel as wind struck. Embers danced like red stars. Somewhere to the north, horns answered. 3 blasts, faint yet clear. The north had won a keep. The war for Dawn had only begun. Galway, Anam. Winterfell's courtyards glowed in uneven rings of torchlight, the flames quivering against walls patched by hasty mortar, where Ramsay's men had torn stones loose to build flaying racks. Smoke from half-dozen pyres drifted skyward, carrying the crackling of freshly split pine and the wetter hiss of green wood. Molten dead fueled most of the fires. Their pink and white banners burned atop the piles, curling into dark petals. Those Stark loyalists who had fallen lay apart in ordered rows, bodies wrapped in wolf cloaks, and sewn shut with iron needles, as old Nan used to sing. No gaping spirit holes for the cold to creep through. The living gathered by the largest pyre to say names. Robb recited each aloud, pressing the syllables into memory, painting them across fresh scars inside his mind. Alice cousin Sir Jory Hornwood, 2 Umber twins scarcely 10, a Cranagman whose name sounded like frog chirp in the reed tongue, 3 mannerly oarsmen who died dragging rams to the gate. Davos stood near Robb throughout, lips moving in quiet prayers to the 7, though his voice never carried. The North would not understand a faith prayer tonight, but Davos would not let the dead go without it. The pyres took, heat rolling in slow waves. Sparks skittered across snow, landing on Robb's leather sleeves and melting white crystals into tiny wet coins that soaked the fresh wolf skin he wore instead of cloak. Gray winds pelt, softened by reed oils, its silver fur dull in lamplight, but still smelling faintly of the dire wolves. Each spark felt like a phantom tooth against his skin. He stood until the last corpse finished turning to curled fragments of blackened bone, until smoke dwindled into morning haze and every torch sputtered into guttering wax. Only then did he allow himself to breathe deeply the clean cold left behind. When daylight finally bled over the eastern ramparts, he climbed the inner stairs to the broken battlements and viewed the damage in full. Winterfell looked a ruin wearing a wedding veil. Fresh snow clung to smashed crenels and half-collapsed towers, lending them a romantic softness that belied precarious stone. The pools steamed weakly, springs beneath still pumping heat into frigid air. Robb threaded fingers along the top course of an old wall, feeling warmth from those springs soak through granite, life blood still pumping through Winterfell's arteries. But cracks webbed that stone everywhere he touched, and where new Bolton work met older foundations, mortar had been slapped without care, meaning freeze-thaw would tear those joints open within moons. Melisandre appeared beside him, so quietly he might have mistaken her for heat mirage. Her eyes followed the plumes from pyres outside the walls. "Fire consumes," she said, "yet each corpse is one less servant for the great other." "The North burns its dead anyway," Robb answered, hearing the hoarseness still living in his throat. "It's the living servants I fear." She cocked her head, the ruby at her throat catching dawn glint like an ember. "The worst living servants of darkness are pawns who believe they chase light. Beware their counsel." She left the parapet, descending toward the godswood without waiting for response. Robb's chest tightened. He suspected half the words aimed at him. The other half needed no suspecting. He saw them already in some of the northern faces that greeted his resurrection with awe, but also with unease. Old gods and new, plus a red shadow god neither camp trusted. If he misstepped, he would fracture the unity they had tasted for a single night. He called his first council that same afternoon, choosing the old solar above the great hall rather than the Lord's tower, whose stairs Ramsay had weakened with rusted spikes meant for intruders. Fire crackled in a hearth that for months had hosted only dust. The room smelled of juniper resin and blood musk from a pelt drying behind the door. Davos entered first, carrying a ledger from the steward's stores. How many sacks of oats left? How few barrels of salt beef? Lady Alice Hornwood followed, short blade at her belt, and snow still sparkling in copper hair. Reed stepped from shadow next, his reed leaf cloak still damp with night dew. Maester Theomore carried new quills and parchment rolls, his cheeks flushed from early winter wind. Manderley's place remained empty. Robb frowned. The fat lord had not been seen since mid-morning. As they settled, footsteps padded outside. The door eased open, and Wyman Manderley ducked through, hair damp, clothes half-buttoned. He sank into the nearest wool-wrapped chair with a groan. "Apologies, Your Grace. I saw to our prisoners. Flayed men hang ill on the conscience." Robb nodded, though piece of him recalled reports that Wyman had fed frays to his ovens after the Red Wedding. Today mercy outweighed hunger. "We will send surviving Bolton men south as part of prisoner exchanges once I decide ransom terms." He paused. But Ramsay burned letters from the great houses of the Vale, Riverlands, even Brevos. "We'll need fresh ravens." "Already begun," Alice said. "The rookery lives, though those birds smell of mold." Bolton Maester tended them poorly. Reed laid a map across the table. Stones waiting corners. "The Bastard's Fall leaves Dreadfort loyalists confused but dangerous. Our scouts saw Carl Bolton, kinsman to Roose, rally 200 horse by the Weeping Water. Karstark cattle wagons crossing Widows watched to join him." Robb leaned closer. "Lord Arnulf Karstark's oaths are worthless as mud. But his late son Harrion stayed loyal until the twins. Harrion is still Frey captive. If we ransom Karstark heir, his uncle may hesitate." Davos scribbled quick notes. "Ransom costs coin we don't own. Lord Wyman, how deep are the vaults?" Manderley puffed cheeks. "Deep as the Mander's mouth, yet half sealed by Lannister tariffs. Still, the Brotherhood without banners sells river pearls to gullible traders. I can contrive shipments that look like smuggling, then turn profit in White Harbor. But time. Robb's hand strayed to his stitches, feeling them growing coarse as healing progressed. "Coin's a problem for daylight," he said softly. "Night is larger." Eyes shifted to him. Flame from lanterns reflected in their pupils, making every gaze seem lit from inside. Robb spoke low. "When I fell, I glimpsed shadows of winter no mortal battlefield touches. I saw armies under a sky with no dawn. I saw men and wolves freeze mid-howl. Only the heart trees remembered warmth. I will not see that again." He tapped the map near Eastwatch. "Jon Snow fights at the wall. If it falls, no castle in Westeros matters. Yet if the wall stands but Winterfell fails to shelter Northfolk, the Watch will fight dead armies while living refugees die anyway. We build a shield behind the shield. We restore Winterfell's granaries, fill them, prepare smithies for dragon glass blades. Then dar." Maester Theomore coughed. "Dragon glass, Your Grace. We see hewn lumps in Skagos though forging them." Davos waved quill. "I've smithed with obsidian shards aboard pirate ships. We can set them into wooden shafts, points lodged fast by resin. Spears, arrows, maybe axes." "Ay," Reed murmured. "The children of the forest once tipped every spear with dragonglass." Robb addressed Wyman. "Dispatch ships to Dragonstone. Stannis quarried dragonglass there. If storms break them, send more. Promise salvage rights to every captain." "Memorandum. Dragonstone guarded by sellswords now," Wyman warned. "But coin opens gates faster than catapults." "Then coin will sail," Robb said. "Meanwhile we mine Skagos. Umbers hold rights. Red Rolf already pledged cutters." Lady Alice drummed fingers. "We still face mortal foes. Roose Bolton fled. We haven't found his body." Her voice shook only at edges. Bold for someone who had grown under threat of forced marriage to Ramsay. Reed pointed at Dreadfort. "Bolton may run there or south to Moat Caelan's ruins. His ravens will beg the Lannisters for succor." "Nesting?" Robb met every eye. "There is no help for him west or south while the Iron Throne sits uncertain. Tommen is a boy king, and Cersei's ruled as rumor. We can delay Bolton alliances by sending envoys to King's Landing claiming we will treat if left unmolested. No seal can travel quick through snow. Davos arched brow. Buying time through half-truths. Never thought I'd see Ned Stark's heir bluff. Robb exhaled. He felt again that heaviness. Dead weight that came with his second birth. Ned Stark's heir died on a trestle table. I intend to win this war. And the winter after. Honor guides my final road, Sir Davos. But I'll choose roads to reach it. Nah. Davos studied him, a hint of sorrow turning lines around his eyes deeper. Your grace, I'll pen your letters, bluff and all. Better liar's ink than children's graves. 3 days passed in hammer-clang and shovel-scrape. Manderley engineers erected hoist frames over the broken inner keep, hauling cracked stones out so masons could patch walls. Hornwood women spun wool thread through narrow looms, set in the old training yard, weaving fresh banners while snow dusted their shoulders. Reed's crannogmen tapped secret pools for fish under ice, smoking fillets in bundles of willow leaves to add protein to Winterfell stores. Robb spent hours with Maester Theomore and the castle scribes, copying painstaking lists, rations, injuries, dragon glass shipments, rosters of knights, watch deserters spotted near Queen's Crown. Each evening he walked God's wood paths, noting how sap seeped from the wounded heart tree only in dusklight when torches dimmed. He would rest his palm against its rough face. Warmth pulsed faint but steady, like heartbeat felt through old bark. On the fourth night, the warmth dulled. Robb jerked awake in his modest chamber high in the broken tower, air still smelling of fresh mortar. A chill seeped from stones. His breath fogged thick as midwinter, though hearth burned low. Outside window portals, the courtyard lay silent beneath starlight. No wind, no crows, yet he sensed movement. He threw on tunic, strapped sword, and parted door quietly. Hall torch brackets lay dark. Flame had somehow died, though nothing stirred. He descended slope of stones into corridor near the crypt stair. One Ramsay had sealed with spiked boards cunningly disguised. Torch stub on wall flickered blue at its tip. Shadows along staircase seemed thicker than walls could cast. Wordless instinct pulled him downward. With each step, chill bit deeper. The stitches at his neck tingled, as if remembering dagger steel. Vaulted crypt tunnels opened, lined by stone effigies of kings of winter. Hands rested on stone swords. Robb passed Lord Rickard's tomb, then Brandon's, then his grandfather's. At the far end a faint glimmer pulsed, ice-blue radiance not cast by flame or moon. When Robb drew nearer, the radiance resolved into a shape crouched beside his father's tomb. A direwolf fashioned from frost, each tuft of fur, a delicate shard, silent breath glowing with ethereal mist. It lifted a muzzle as Robb approached, and its eyes blazed silver white, not gray winds living gold, but ghost gleam. Robb halted, sword halfway from scabbard, unsure whether blade mattered. The frost wolf regarded him, then stepped aside, revealing Ned Stark's stone effigy. Frost coated the statue's face except the eyes, which glistened wet as living orbs. Robb swallowed dryness. He reached out. The frost wolf did not snarl. His fingertips brushed carved cheek. Warmth radiated up his arm, and in his mind a voice, not heard with ears but vibrating inside chest bone, called his name, soft, weary, fatherly. Robb closed eyes. A memory surged. Ned teaching Bran to aim with bow, gentle correction of elbow, the scent of boiled leather and pine pitch. But new images intruded. Vast shadows marching across snowscape. Hearts of men freezing mid-beat. Ned's statue cracked, face crumbling into shards as cold wind howled. Robb yanked hand away. The frostwolf turned and padded into deeper dark. Walls parted downward into an opening Robb had never seen. Raw-hewn tunnel sloping beneath tombs. Ancient cracks parted there, big enough for a slender man to slide through. Edges rimed with hoarfrost. A current of frigid air escaped. Robb forced legs to move. He followed, stooping. The ravine wound crooked for many yards until arriving at a cavern whose ceiling glittered with quartz. There, the Frostwolf melted into snowdrift and was gone. On the floor lay a sword, ancient, blade black as obsidian but shaped like northern steel. Runes along fuller glimmered faint indigo. Robb hesitated, then knelt, grasping hilt wrapped in leather so old it crackled. The sword weighed strangely light, as though forged from absence itself. When he lifted it, the cavern's quartz shards flared with inner luminescence, revealing pictographs etched high. Children of the forest giving wolves to first men, dragonglass spears piercing tall figures crowned with ice, and a sigil of direwolf encircling a ring of flames. He sheathed blade instinctively. Its length slid into battered scabbard at hip, metal humming with subtle resonance. Turning back, he found the path behind collapsed by time. No sign of Frostwolf, or that shimmering opening. Only narrow corridor he'd entered remained. Torches there flickered orange again. Warmth returned slowly. Robb retraced his steps to crypt, heart pounding. When he emerged to courtyard, dawn had begun to silver sky. He hurried to Maester Theomore's tower. The Maester answered his knock half-dressed, eyes wide behind sleep fog. Robb showed black blade. Theomore's fingers trembled as they traced runes. Valyrian, he whispered. No, the fold's wrong. Could be dragonsteel of lost age? These glyphs? First men script mixed with elf marks? Robb recounted discovery in crypt without mention of Frostwolf's voice. Keep secret, he finished. Study runes at leisure. Davos joined them, summoned by a page. He studied blade warily. Objects found in tomb tunnels rarely bode easy. Robb buckled sword at belt, under cloak. There's more in those tunnels than bones. Perhaps paths older than Winterfell itself. If they reach north of the wall. Davos whistled. Spare thought for how foes might use same. Collapse entrances after mapping. Robb nodded. But he resolved to walk again that hidden way, sensing destiny coiling there like spring thunder. By mid-month ravens arrived from Bear Island, Deepwood Motte, Widow's Watch, and houses smaller still. Each carried pledges of men and grain. Aye, but each also held caution. You're a resurrection, whispers of shadow. Robb responded in his own hand, penning honesty. I died betrayed, risen now by fire and faith and the old gods who watched. I stand between you and winter. Join me and judge my worth yourselves. One raven bore a different seal. Crow. Jones' new letter. Need desperately. Wildlings camp, yet restless. Watch divides. Hardhome whites pressing coast. Lightbringer rumors false. I lead but men doubt. Can send Cotter Pike with black ships to White Harbor for dragonglass and seed grain. Others grow bolder. Send word of stark banners. You live? The wall must believe. Robb read lines thrice. He pictured Jon brooding above Eastwatch Sea, wind carving stony lines deeper into his face. He wrote back. I live. I reign at Winterfell reclaimed. Bolton broken, many banners gathering. Dragonglass in transit. Pike welcome. North will send timber, barley obsidian, smiths who risk black. Stand fast. Wolf pack forms. He sealed letter with gray wax and dire wolf stamp, eyes stinging on final phrase. On impulse he penned another, shorter note on thin parchment. Folded small into inner envelope addressed to Jon's hand alone. The song said I was king but we are brothers first. I remember the yard at 6 years old. I remember you giving Bran piggyback when I could not lift him. Hold fast to who you are. I will hold fast too. Maester Theomore dispatched swift raven. That night, Wyman's scouts returned from Dreadfort border. Roose Bolton had fled south, disguised as Septiferia's escort. Squire Tongues claimed he aimed for Stony Shore to board an iron-born longship, still loyal to Yara Greyjoy. Robb convened war council. Options: pursue Roose with vanguard risking ambush, or fortify Winterfell, and let broken Bolton wander into ironborn politics. Davos argued to hunt. Leave a snake to winter, it bites again in spring. Reed offered caution. Swamp swallows snakes if one waits. Melisandre studied flames and said only, ice and fire cross at sea too. The council ended without decision, but Robb dispatched Mormont longboats. from deep wood to shadow stony shore for fugitives. A nebula of decision swirled every hour. Where to billet new recruits when barracks lacked roofs, how to ration ale to umber berserkers who fought half-drunk or not at all. What punishments for brawls between Hornwoods and Karstark defectors. How many smiths to keep forging arrowheads of simple steel before switching to dragonglass. Whether to allow Melisandre nightly prayers in the godswood or forbid flame near heart. Each choice balanced trust, fear, and urgency. Robb found new patience inside grief. His temper, once quick as wolfbite, slowed, perhaps dulled by sobering second life, perhaps sharpened inward to cut only when blow mattered. On a pale dawn, a thinning column of black smoke on far ridge signaled riders returning from east. Scouts rode hard into yard. Wildling outriders, allies of Jon, had broken from Tormund's host and were raiding south for sheep. They numbered 500, armed poorly, but desperate. If they crossed Last River into fertile Hornwood lands, crops for winter would burn. Robb assembled quick riders, Aelys, Mira, 24 mounted crannogmen, 50 Manderly lances, Davos though he protested his seamanship unsuited to saddle, and led them out before noon, snowflakes swirling like ghost pollen around horse hooves. They crossed the shale flats and caught wildlings by dusk, a ragged snake of furs harnessed to scraggy mountain garrons. The wildling leader, a young spear maiden with hair bright as smoldering cedar bark, named herself Birka, Crow-Eye. She leveled spear at Robb as storm clouds deepened overhead. Robb hailed her in clear voice, naming himself king in the north. Birka spat. King south of the wall, lead dead men or dead words, she called. Your brother at wall offers food, yet our bellies hollow faster than promises. Robb dismounted, left sword sheathed, stepped across brittle grass. I rose from death, he said. I know hollow, but I also know when the north stands a pack. Winter's belly empties, not ours. He offered wildlings 3 choices. Ride with him to Winterfell and earn ration for spear work repairing walls. Head back north with supplies escorted by Reed's guides. Or fight and die here and leave their children carrion for the snow. She studied his stitches, his silver wolf pelt, the black sword hilt protruding at hip. Lightning flickered behind Cloudbank, revealing his features, ghost-lit. Something in that uncanny visage, half god, half corpse, warred with her defiance. She answered, 100 ride with you, 100 ride home with grain, 300 ride wherever horns call. Blood for vows. Robb nodded. Blood we shed together against what walks in night. Your 300 roam, but do not raid Cropland of the north, else I will hunt you. She smiled, the grin of a wolf pup glimpsing true winter for first time. They clasped wrists, her cut palm to his. Blood mingled, sealing pact. That evening, back at Winterfell, Robb stood on ramparts watching wildling tents sprout beyond outer walls like brown mushrooms. He recalled Maester Luwin's lessons. When first men and children of forest brokered peace, each spilled blood on weirwood roots. Now men of differing worlds spilled blood on rime-crusted stone. He was still staring when footsteps approached. Quiet, light. Mira leaned elbows on battlement beside him. Does the frost sing to you, your grace? Robb remained silent, unsure how to frame what crypt voice had sung. She continued anyway. Jojen saw you in green dream. Says your shadow burns blue flame. Means you'll walk into night and bring day with you. Or perhaps burn day down. She shrugged. Visions rarely speak plain. Robb sighed. Visions, prophecies. I would trade them for fields of wheat. Mira smiled. But the wheat might not grow without visions guiding your hand. He turned to her. Moonlight traced lines of fatigue under her eyes, yet she looked steady. Your brother, he asked. How fares? He sleeps often, wakes whispering of ravens 3-eyed and of a boy king with broken legs. Says they all tangle threads to snare the white spiders, hard to know meaning. Robb thought of Bran, last seen fleeing north of the wall with silent companions. A pang pierced his heart fresher than any sword cut. He placed hand on black blade, its hilt unexpectedly warm, as if the metal drank cold around it. Tell Yogen his threads may cross soon. Winter burst full. Storms hammered Winterfell night upon night, piling snow so high along inner walls that children slid down roof peaks into drifts below. Men shoveled from dawn to dusk just to keep Bailey passable. Dragonglass shipments arrived from Skagos. Skiffs crewed by Umber fishermen offloaded crates reeking of tar pitch used to seal volcanic glass shards. Smiths hammered copper sockets for spearheads, bound blades with resin. Crannog fletchers crafted arrows tipped with slivers set in linen thread. Manderley armorers experimented affixing wider chips onto flanged maces, so a blow from steel plus glass might crush bone and deliver burning wound to white flesh. Melisandre spent hours at forge, chanting low while sparks flew. She claimed flame within forge would remember names of those blades when enemies rose. Smiths muttered, but none denied the glow that sometimes flickered along obsidian pieces after she touched them. Soft red veins like barely cooled lava. The heart tree began to heal. Where Ramsay's axe hacked grooves, sap now hardened into scar lines pale pink. Melisandre insisted each scar formed words in language older than runes. Reed believed, same. Robb watched and saw only slow renewal, but he accepted message meant deeper. Every 10 days, Robb's raven tether brought word from Wall. Joan's black brothers reforged bridges across wildling camps. Cotter Pike's fleet returned with Hardhome survivors half-starved, thousands. White attacks repelled by flaming oil. Giant named One Weg, Vundar One, died shielding. Dacer Eamon passed beyond quietly in fever. Still the walls stood. Each letter carved worry deeper yet, fired determination. One evening, horns blasted thrice from East Watchtower of Winterfell. Riders from Wharf Woods galloped through Main Gate, dragging a half-dead man on travois. Karstark outrider, arrow in thigh. He gasped that 500 Bolton loyalists, led by Carl Bolton, advanced along King's Road under black storm sky, aiming to retake Castle. They hauled trebuchet parts on ox carts, hoping to bombard walls with firepots spirited from Dreadfort. Robb's commanders mustered quickly. Reed advocated ambush in Wolfswood passes. Umber berserkers demanded open field to smash. Davos suggested harrying carts at night, burning provisions so Sige died starved. Melisandre said fires lit in blizzard risked signaling bigger eyes. Robb weighed. Field fight risked drag Bolton's bigger numbers near Wildling camp. Harry at night might scatter force but leave pieces regroup. Ambush among trees offered advantage while terrain funneled ox carts. He chose reeds and snow. Crannog spear bands would line frozen swales where King's Road skirted Barrow Downs. Umber foot-axe units would feign retreat, drawing Carl's vanguard onto hidden ice. Manderley archers would loose from ridge once carts mired. Davos would lead small lancers to seize firepot wagons, douse pitch. Melisandre insisted on walking with them, her presence a flame unseen but felt. Blizzard clouds cloaked moon when they slipped into positions. Snow whirled so thick that torches cast halos barely arm's length. Robb crouched with Mira in drift behind ice-crusted boulder. Wind sliced open his healing stitches, but he ignored sting. Across road, shapes of Bolton vanguard crawled through gloom. Mounted men muffled in bearskins, leading stumbling oxen. Robb signaled Reed call. Mira let fly first arrow. Obsidian tip flashed red where torchlight kissed, then buried in neck of rider. The man toppled soundlessly into powder. Bolton captain barked, torches pivoted. Umber berserker group roared from tree line, axes banging shields, then wheeled in feigned panic. Bolton cavalry surged, but hooves crashed through thin crust into bog water concealed by snow. Horses screamed, riders flailed. Cold gray water swallowed them to girth. Crannog spears thrust from rush clumps, dragging men under. Bolts whizzed from Manderley Ridge, punching shields, skittering along helmet rims. Robb raced forward, sword blazing blue-black where snowflakes hit, each flake sizzling as if blade boiled them away. He reached Captain Doubting amidst chaos, Cloveman's helmet, felt no joy. Saw Davos wrestle with wagon drover over torch, then kicked torch into snow while Melisandre touched wagon's side. Pitch within fizzed but did not ignite, as if her flame drank it. Second wagon caught stray torch and flared. Melisandre snapped spoken word. Fire died under gust of unnatural wind. Even amid storm, Robb sensed stranger forces whirling, cold and hot, warring in invisible weaves. Within half-hour road lay littered with broken carts. Oxen freed, Bolton remnants fleeing south, abandoning siege dreams. Robb called pursuit off after quarter mile. Winterfell still needed defenders. Prisoners knelt in snow. Some begged mercy, others spat. He ordered them bound, not slain. Each might ransom food for starving holdfasts. Back at castle, Mira washed blood from cheek. Robb realized streak across her braid looked exactly like sap scar on Hearttree. He touched it. She did not flinch. Shadow tried to bite, she said, but ice broke its teeth. He did not ask deeper. Winterfell filled with refugees. Shepherds driven by blizzard to gates. Wildlings who changed minds. Karstark smallfolk afraid of both uncles. Each day horns signaled another group trudging from white horizon. Children blue-faced. Goats bleating weakly. Lady Alice and Wyman oversaw soup cauldrons. Robb sometimes stood at gate greeting families personally, telling them the old gods watched. The new king, a humble servant. His presence, his voice, scratchy yet warm, kept terror from blooming into riot. One evening, among refugees stood woman of 20 years, with auburn hair streaked ash, eyes gray-blue. She locked gaze with Robb, uncertain, hopeful, then stunned. He inhaled. Sansa? She moved like wind finding gap in wall, collapsed into his arms. He smelled journey's grime, straw, fear, tears turning to ice on her cheeks. He held her, realizing bones felt fragile as birds, but heart thrummed strong. She whispered, "I thought you dead forever." He answered, "I was, once." She hugged tighter. He glimpsed behind her Cerbrian of Tarth. Armor dented, face stoic. And Podrick Payne wearing ragged knight's watch cloak too large. That night, they sat by steaming pool indoors, while snow hammered roof. Sansa recounted flight from Vale, Brienne's duel on an inn floor, near capture by Frey outriders, quiet ride through highlands until horns of Winterfell, faint in storm. Robb listened, rage rising at fresh crimes of Lannisters and Freys. But he let it cool, forging determination. He introduced Sansa to council the next day. Lords bowed. She spoke with poise learned in King's Landing, yet tempered by hardship. She proposed stitching networks of ravens to Vale quickly. Littlefinger's intrigues threatened there, but Knights of the Eyrie might still answer call for justice under proper Stark voice. Robb authorized. He felt Sister's presence anchor his memory of childhood, as though part of himself lost at twins, finally reattached. In following week, word came that Miranda Royce, Lady of the Gates, had raised banners for Sansa, citing rightful Lady of Winterfell. Robb sent thanks plus request for barley surpluses. The Vale's grain stores, rumored plentiful. Winter's belly might yet fill. But storms sharpened. On Frostfall's eve, ravens failed to return. Gusts tore shutters from tower windows. Snow buried west wall walkway. Nighttime temperature dropped until boiled water thrown from parapet froze before ground. Maester Theomore warned of frostbite casualties within walls if wood ran scarce. Robb personally helped fell dead apple trees in Godswood Orchard, each swing of axe echoing across stone yards like funeral toll. During such labors, ghostly horns sounded one dawn. 3 blasts north of Winterfell. Watchmen panicked. Wildlings. Others? Scouts galloped to Ridge. They returned midday with tail. Shimmering figures seen at treeline before snow swallowed them. Tracks left no prints in drifts. Panic buzzed through small folk. Robb addressed courtyard, voice cutting crisp air. Ghosts test courage, but walls and hearts stand stronger. That evening, he commanded double torch rows along curtain walls, tar-soaked lines to ignite at first sign of undead. Melisandre sprinkled powdered resin into each tar barrel. Flames burned higher, flaring red as Hearttree sap. Soon after, Sansa entered Godswood to pray and found Melisandre meditating before Weirwood. They spoke privately long. Later Sansa told Robb the Red Woman foretold her voice might choose a king before winter's wane. Sansa laughed it off, but Robb saw a flicker of worry. He scheduled rest for himself rarely. One night he collapsed in seat at Solar, eyelids heavy, letter half written to Jon, drifted to sleep. In dream, he stood on ice sheet under swirling aurora. A head loomed figure in white-blue armor, crown of icicles, its eyes azure flames. Between them, a chasm opened into abyss. The figure raised long spear. At its tip glowed shard of black sword, his sword. Wind howled. The chasm widened. He stepped forward, offered palm. The figure mirrored gesture. In mirror he saw his own face beneath frost. He woke sweating. Dawn revealed word from Cotter Pike. Eastwatch Harbor froze solid overnight. Whites now walking sea ice. Ships trapped. Need dragonfire or evacuation. Robb summoned Melisandre, Davos, Reed, Wyman, Sansa. He outlined plan. Send dragonglass and barrels of high sap pine pitch north by land, atop sleds pulled by plow horses. Reed's marsh runners would guide, Umber's guard. Davos would accompany to treat with Jon, bringing forged obsidian axes demonstration. Melisandre volunteered to ride, claiming her flame could warm travelers. Robb refused. He needed her fire at Winterfell. She accepted with cryptic nod. After council, Davos pulled Robb aside. "There's talk among men," he said, "that you and Melisandre share more than war counsel. They fear her sway." Robb rubbed throat where stitches itched under collar. "Her counsel saves lives." Davos cut gently, "and may cost souls. I've seen before." He gestured to scar between second and third finger. "Lost to leech king's blood ceremony. Guard your heart, lad. It came back fragile." Robb met his eyes. "I listened to you, Onion Knight. I will not burn children for victory." "That promise weighs heavier than blades," Davos said. "Keep it." Robb clasped his wrist. "You are my hand in all but title." Davos exhaled. "Then I'll ride to Jon and come back." The sled column departed as golden sun glimpsed horizon for first time in fortnight. Tracks cut through drifts. Sansa and Robb watched from rampart. She slipped gloved hand into his. "Do you trust your Red Woman?" she asked. "I trust what I see her do more than what she says." He turned to her. "Do you trust any of us?" She smiled faintly. "I trust no one fully. But I believe some hearts. I believe yours." Robb's chest tightened with mixture of gratitude and sorrow for trust once broken at Twins. He gestured across courtyard where wildling children helped Hornwood lads fling snowballs. "We forge new pack pieces each day. Bran used to say pack survives." Sansa's eyes watered. "If Bran yet lives, he walks north of Wall." Robb squeezed her hand. "Then Jon will find him." Evening violet light bled into turrets when horns sounded from East Walkway. Rider approaching. Gates creaked. Inside trotted a shaggy brown stallion bearing man half frozen. Guards rushed. Robb arrived as they eased him down. The man wore garb of Night's Watch but black cloak shredded, revealing chainmail marked with direwolf patch of House Stark. He coughed. Wisps of blood on lip. "Nay me," he rasped. "Benjen." Robb's knees buckled. He caught self. Benjen Stark, long presumed lost beyond Wall. Beard encrusted with rime. Eyes shadowed. He clutched cloth bundle. Robb knelt. "Uncle?" Benjen's cracked smile flickered. "Long road, boy, king." His gaze drifted. "Night grows long indeed." He pressed bundle into Robb's arms. "Give to Bran." "When?" "When he..." Breath wheezed. Maester Theomore hurried, but Benjen's body convulsed. He stilled. Robb swallowed grief. He opened bundle. Page torn from massive tome, covered in swirling glyphs and half-drawn map of lands north of the Wall beyond Frostfangs. At center, a mark shaped like eye ringed by spiral. Under glyphs, Benjen scrawled in barely legible hand. "Source of night. Fire in heart of ice. Show this to the three-eyed raven." Robb stared until Sansa touched his shoulder gently. He folded map. Heart pounding. Three-eyed raven, Bran's path. A quest far beyond Winterfell, maybe answer to end of night. That midnight, he returned to crypt, black blade in hand. Frost now coated corridor again, though castle above warmed with braziers. He approached his father's statue. Frostwolf did not appear, but sap tears glistened redder, and he felt voice again. Seek the end where beginnings hide. Pack will guide. Fire will trust. Robb whispered into cold air. I will. He exited crypt, crossing courtyard under aurora shimmering violent greens. Snow creaked like old silk beneath boots. Melisandre awaited at Godswood Gate, face illuminated by ruby glow. The time approaches, she said. You carry sword of night. Soon you ride road of dawn. Robb met those ember eyes, feeling both dread and fierce hope. Not alone, he answered. He glanced to rampart where Sansa kept watch, to corner tower where Ella's trained archers, to smithy where wildling youth hammered dragonglass, to hall where Reed taught manderly knights to step silent. The pack rides. Melisandre placed palm over his heart. The ruby pulsed. Stitches stung then soothed. Then light may yet conquer night. Overhead, a star like burning wound streaked across heavens, shedding tail of golden fire that hissed silently into north. Every soul in Winterfell looked upward, breath caught. Some bowed, some prayed. Robb Stark watched until bright scar faded, and in glow's afterimage he saw shapes. A direwolf howling, a sword aflame, a sun rising behind wall. When his vision cleared, only winter sky remained, vast and uncaring. But in his heart, something stirred, steady as forge bellows. Work waited. Dawn not yet come, but he would carry embers through dark until dawn chose to break.